Let's delve deeper into our question then. Tonight, the Democratic Alliance is saying it will start processes which might include court action to force the president to make the performance assessments of cabinet ministers public. Now, this as reports emerged that these will not be made public to avoid information being used against them. And you'd remember in the past, around 2020, the president pledging that the performance agreements would be made public to ensure accountability and transparency. So how are the assessments going then in that particular regard? Let's speak to Sandile Swana, who's a political and a governance analyst and joins us tonight. Mr. Swana, thank you so much for your time. These won't be made public, so they aren't used as a political tool to make colleagues possibly look bad. Your reaction?
Thank you, Bongwe, and your viewers. The decision by the cabinet and the president not to make the assessment reports available to the general public and to the members of parliament is a mistake. It undermines our democracy. Those should be made public because those people are doing a job that is mandated by us, the residents of South Africa, and more specifically the citizens who vote them into power. They must report to us in full.
And some argue that this is an employer-employee relationship, but it's done in public though. No,
the issue of employer and employee relationship is irrelevant to this topic. The tasks that the cabinet performs is a task that otherwise you and I as citizens would have been doing it ourselves. But for the sake of efficiency, we elect people who must do it on our behalf, and we put representatives, which is the members of parliament, who must make sure that on a day-to-day basis, our interests as the public are looked into. So the relationship here is that of a representative who is elected by us. So it is nothing to do with an employer-employee relationship. That is a mistaken.
And there's something else that really I thought about when this emerged, to say that this information must not be used against them, and the president saying that he doesn't want to just basically make it public for the opposition to then, use this information as a political tool. But does this signal that they aren't as good as they were supposed to have been since the time we saw those agreements in public? Because it does look like he may not be confident in what is contained in there.
Yes, the poor performance of the cabinet ministers of the ANC at this point in time is well known. As an example, we already know that our children at standard 2 or grade 4 cannot read for meaning, which means the Minister of Education and the department have been underperforming for a long time, and for all practical purposes, Bantu education has remained in place. Maths teachers do not understand maths, they are not up to standard. So there are many, for instance, in the water sector, there's a Blue Drop report that has come out that shows clearly that we have backslidden. So we know that poor performance of the various cabinet ministers and the president himself is self-evident. There is no doubt about it.
And I suppose then, when you listen to some of what was said to try and justify this particular, decision, is also the fact that they appear before Parliament and therefore their work is scrutinized on an ongoing basis. But is Parliament a sufficient oversight where we stand right now as South Africans to ensure that effective oversight is exercised in these departments and things improve?
We can also answer that question in a very straightforward manner, which is to say the idea of signing performance agreements with the cabinet ministers and doing performance reviews was Ramaphosa's idea in the first place. And if he thought that the committees were enough and everything else is enough, then why did he start this? All that is being asked now is that he comes through on what he promised he would do so that we can see that the job that he said he was going to do, he is doing it. Even before we go to what those other reports and oversight committees do.
And Mr. Swana, there's, something else that, as you're saying, in 2020 we see this. He says that these agreements will be made public. But then now we have a whole department, again, that is monitoring and evaluating. What is it monitoring and evaluating if we're also not getting these reports, as basically on an ongoing basis? Because that should also form part of what they should be doing to monitor the work of their colleagues?
The first thing that we need to point out is that that Department of Monitoring and Evaluation stopped doing its job when Collins Chabane died. After that, it remained moribund. It has not been working. And the professionals who are in that department on a day-to-day basis are loafing around. They've not been doing their job. This is a fact. Now, Ramaphosa comes along and says one of the things that the previous regime, of which he was part of, the Zuma regime, failed to run the country properly by not doing proper performance evaluation of ministers and whatever, and that is going to correct that. And he has not done that. So you have those two problems. They abandoned this thing since the death of Collins Chabane till today, and now Ramaphosa is not reporting in the manner that he was supposed to. And there is indeed a department that is supposed to be reporting frequently and in depth about how each ministry is performing and how each department and the administration, the professional staff, how they are actually performing. And that is not happening under Ramaphosa.
So what does it say then to South Africans who are watching this unfold?
Well, I want to say that it is unfair, first of all, for Ramaphosa to say that there is a thing called opposition parties and that they will weaponize this. Those people are not opposition parties. Those people are representatives of citizens. They are elected there not to oppose anything. They are elected there to go and represent us and ask the questions we cannot ask because we're at home and they are in parliament. So what is happening, which we've seen it with Pala, we've seen it with the cadre deployment files, we saw it with the CR17 files. The Ramaphosa regime suppresses information that is supposed to come in full to the public. And he's now presently hoping that he can suppress this until the elections go past. And the DA and members of parliament have known that this cabinet is underperforming severely, and they put a motion of no confidence in them already before.
And just before I let you go, very briefly then, what was your reaction? I'm sure you did watch that press briefing earlier on when the Secretary General of the ANC was talking about this ongoing issue with Ezulweni Investments and saying that this company did not render services to the ANC. Of course, this matter is still before the courts, and everything else that he's had to say in that regard, given the recent developments that we've seen in that particular issue.
Well, briefly, the matter in terms of its merit is no longer before the court. That issue has been decided already. So they are trying to raise a constitutional issue, which is another topic altogether, and they are unlikely to succeed. But the courts have said that they have tried to invent fictitious disputes of fact, which means facts are there and the ANC invented untruths to try and defend itself. It has no defense. So they need to pay the money. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Swana, let me thank you so much for your time, and let's see then, we'll continue to monitor this performance assessments issue, because it is even our question tonight, and the viewers are calling, the ones that are taking part in it, the majority are calling for them to be made public. But let's see then what happens in this regard. That is Sandile Swana, political and governance analyst.